Parshas Matos and Masei. Two parshas this week, starting on page 900. We're really moving along, huh? All the way up to page 900. So we begin, and it says, the usual introduction in almost every parsha, V'aydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor, but it doesn't say that here. Here it says, V'aydaber Moshe, Moshe speaks, al Roshei Matos, to the heads of the tribes, L'bnei Yisrael, that they should speak to the Jewish people, right? Lemor, saying, Zadavar Asher Tiva Hashem, God commanded the following. And then it goes into this whole section talking about oaths. Ish ki yador neder, a man who says a oath to God, or he takes a pledge to forbid something on himself. So first thing, what are they talking about? And the difference between a vow and a pledge, or a neder and a shavua. These are both words that are used, meaning you're taking some type of an oath. What are examples of these things? Like, for instance, if I say, from now on, I'm not going to drink coffee. I say, in the name of God, in the name of God, I will not drink coffee. And for whatever reason, I'm saying it because maybe I allow it to deter me from doing something good, or I want to try to improve my character, so I deprive myself of certain things, whatever. So I make such a statement. So when I do that, then if I do that and I mean it and I use the name of God like that, then for me coffee is like pig. I can't do it. If I eat it, I'm breaking this law. And in Judaism, a vow or an oath is extremely serious. That's why we all know how when a Jew goes to court, right, civil court, they want you to take an oath and you put your hand on the Bible. And we always say that we can't swear, Jews can't swear, we have to affirm. And that's because, well, it's not that we can't. We can. It's in the Torah. It's just that we consider it such a serious thing to do. It's very, very serious that we don't do it unless we're really forced to. So even in cases where where you could benefit, we also try not to do it. So for instance, if you go to court and they want you to swear, you tell them you can't swear, you'll do what they call affirm. That is, I'm not telling you in the name of God. Right? Because what happens if I say something that I say this is true, and I say in the name of God, like they want you to. So what I'm saying is, just as God is true, this is true. And therefore, if this is not true, then I'm denying God. Right? I'm saying, just as that God is real, then and my words are true. And it turns out my words are false, I've denied God. That's a serious thing. So that's why we don't take oaths. Now there are times, and for instance, where I may, let's say I go to court with someone, he says I owe him $100, and I say I paid him back. And the base thing goes back and forth, and they finally say, okay, Rabbi Rothman, if you swear, right, in the name of God, that you paid him back, we're going to accept what you said. And so you'd say, well, of course I'm going to swear. I'll do it. Because now I don't have to pay the money, because I already paid him, I believe. But the fact is that it's preferred, even though you're allowed to, it's preferred you don't. Even if I have to pay him again. Because to take an oath is a serious matter. So we learned all the laws of oaths here. So the first the question that comes up about it is that it says that all the time it says that God tells Moshe to tell the Jewish people. Here it says Moshe tells the heads of the Jewish people, and the heads of the Jewish people are supposed to deal with the people. Why would he do it differently here? So it says that because one needs to understand that when Moshe teaches us the laws of oaths and pledges, which we're going to get into, he also teaches you how do you get out of them. In other words, what is the legal process to do one, and what's the legal process to break it? Let's say, I'm not saying necessarily that this is true and God, just as God is true. There's nothing you can do about that. But I say, from now on, I'm not going to drink coffee. And then, then after a month goes by, I see how hard that is. And I say, if I had known how difficult it would be for me not to drink coffee, I never would have made this pledge. So too bad, you're stuck. But you're not stuck. If you have a basis, it's able for you to go to someone, depending what the situation is, either to a rabbi or to a court, or a woman sometimes can go to her husband, or a young girl can go to her father, and they have a test that sort of of your words to be able to see if they can break it for you, so that you don't have to keep it. And that's all found in the section. So the reason that they went to the heads of the tribes to do this was because they didn't want the average person to misunderstand and think, I can take an oath whenever I want. I'll just break it. I'll just go to my father and he'll break it for me. I'll go to the rabbi, he'll break it for me. Right? And then they'll be very loose and easy about taking oaths. And we didn't want people to do that. That was very important, that people should take oaths only when it was in very serious situations. So here he talks about this, and he says, so a person who makes a neder to God, or he takes an oath to forbid something on himself. So one is, right, this is true as God is true. That's called a neder. And a shavua is, I won't do this anymore, or I will do this, right, from now on. Right, where a person says this affirmatively, and then it says that, right, it says a person should lo yachel divaro b'chol hayosim epiv. A person should not make useless or mundane the words that come out of their mouth. Right? You should do it. Whatever if you say something, your words have meaning, and this is an important point. That in Torah it tells us that when a person's words have force, there's a power behind words. We see many mitzvahs dealing with words. You have the laws of Lashon Hora, right? How painful it is when somebody says something bad about somebody else. How humiliating it could be. How destructive it could be. You could start a war over saying the wrong thing. You could kill someone over saying the wrong thing. You could make somebody so depressed and so much in pain just by saying the wrong words. Our words have a lot of power, but not only in that way. Our words have power to effectively change things. I can, like, let's say you have a man and a woman. The man dies. The woman doesn't get any money from him. She's just a woman. She's nothing to him. She's not related to him, nothing. Right? But that same man could say to this woman, you are married to me, and give her a ring. And by virtue of the fact that he says this to her and she accepts it, they're married. Now, when he dies, she inherits him. But 5 minutes before, if he died, she wouldn't have inherited him. Right? But 5 minutes before, if he died, she would still be, let's say she marries him, and he dies 5 minutes after they get married. She's still not allowed to marry a Kohen, right? And yet, the man, if she didn't have that, where she accepted his words, she'd be able to marry a Kohen. So you say how powerful words are, right? Words can be very powerful. So here it tells you another area where it's powerful, which is you can say words which can take something permissible and make it forbidden. You can say, from now on, I'm not going to eat cake. No more cake. And if you eat cake, you're breaking the Torah. Just like if you ate pig. Because you're saying that. Right? When you say this and you mean it, you understand what you're doing, it's the same idea. Right? It's considered very, very serious. Our words are important. And most religions and most cultures don't do this. They don't think words mean much. Words, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, I think that probably in the history of the world, there's been more pain inflicted by words than with sticks and stones. Right? So we consider it very serious. So it goes through this whole section, right? And it goes on that says, Isha ki chad neder, whatever, if a woman who makes an oath, and she forbids something upon herself, and then her father hears about it, and the father has the ability to break it for her. Right? Let's say you have a 13-year-old girl, not that mature yet, and she says, I'm never going to talk to a boy again. Right? And now she's stuck. If she takes an oath like that she's never going to do it, she's in trouble. Right? So her father hears it, how silly, she's 13 years old, she's not mature yet. So the father has the ability to break it. Now, when she's older, as long as she's not married, the father still has that ability, right, where the woman will come to him and say, if I had understood this, it wouldn't have happened. But it's not just women. Men also can do this. If a boy does it, his father can break it. And if he's older, if he's an adult, then he can go to the court, to the Beis Din. And the Beis Din often has the ability to break it. Not always, but often. And you also have people who misunderstand oaths. Right? They take them way too far, or with too much meaning. And one needs to understand how they work and what they do so that we handle it. And that here we have Yom Kippur, is like the holiest day of the year, and the first thing we do on Yom Kippur is Kol Nidre, which is all of the oaths and all of the promises that I have said, or that I will say this coming year, should not be held against me. because we say things, someone asks you, are you going to come to my house tonight? You say, yeah, I'm coming tonight, I promise. Right? Now, that's not necessarily the same, but there are times when you can make a statement like that, and people take it like that, and then you might have on some level broken an oath. Right? One needs to be very careful with their words. So he goes on, just in the English, so just for the sake of time, we'll read some more. If her father restrained her on the day, okay, it goes on. Then it says if she's married, what happens, and she takes an oath, then her husband has the ability, in certain circumstances, to be able to make the oath no longer apply to her. And then this is the vow of a widow or divorcee. Anything she prohibited upon herself shall remain with her. Right? Because a widow or divorcee she's not in her father's house anymore because she got married, but she's not in her husband's house either because he's either dead or divorced. So there she has to go to the court. Right? She has to go to like a man's house. Now, if we go to, so that is the beginning of the section, and it's a very significant area. But we'll go on a bit now, and the bottom of 902, we switch. Here it says, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lemor. Hashem tells Moshe, Nakom nakmas b'nei Yisrael. You should go and be jealous, right, on behalf of the Jewish people against the Midyanim. Achar ta'asif hasamecha, right, and after that you're going to die. In other words, God says to Moshe, look, the Midyanim made a lot of trouble for you. Right? They caused the Jews to sin, and they went to war with you. So I want you to go to war and take vengeance against them. They should know they can't do this. But after you're done with that, you're going to die. That's what he says. Right? It's the end of the book. Right? The Jews are going to enter Israel. So Vaydaber Moshe. So Moshe goes to the people. On the top of 904, he says, Vaydaber Moshe el ha'am. He says to the people, Lemor. We are going to take from among you men for the army. So, and we're going to go to war against Midian in order to put the jealousy of the vengeance of God against them. So there's a couple of things to discuss here. First thing is, if you hear, God says that I want you to go to war against Midian because of what they did to you, to the Jewish people. But when Moshe tells the Jewish people, he says that we're going to go to war against Midian because of how they went against God. So God is concerned about the feelings of the Jewish people. Right? He seeks for their best. But Moshe says the people are interested in God's feelings and God's the attack on God. Right? In other words, all perspective, how they look at it. Right? We say that it's sort of like if you have a husband and a wife, and somebody insults the wife. The wife can forgive the person, but the husband rarely does, right? Because it was my wife they insulted, or vice versa. If somebody insults a woman's husband, the husband will say, what do I care? He's an idiot. I'm not going to, that doesn't do it. But the wife won't. Because when it comes to insulting your partner, or doing something to your partner or your children, it's very hard to forgive someone for that. But for yourself, you can. And that's part of what you have here. God says, Moshe, go to war against the nation of Midian, because the nation of Midian, what they did is they attacked the Jewish people, they killed Jews, they made them sin. You have to go and do this, right? It's important because what they did to you. And then Moshe goes to the Jewish people and said, God commanded us to go to war against the Midianim, and you know why we're going to go to war? Because they went against God. They attacked the Jewish people, they were attacking God. So Moshe looks at it from the point of view of the Jews, his partner, they insulted God. And God looks at his partner, which are the Jewish people, and says, look how what they did to the Jewish people. We all looked at the opposite side. And it's an important point. But another important thing that goes on here is look at the timing. God says to Moshe, go to war against the Midianim, and then you're going to die. Right? Your life is over then. So if I was Moshe, what I'd do is I'd say, sure. And I wouldn't go to war so fast, because I'm going to live until they go to war. After I go to war, I'll die. So what I'll do is I'll take my time. I'll tell the Jews, do all this other stuff. We're going to do a lot of things. We're going to take an accounting of what we got. We're going to take a little bit of a walk. We're going to take a vacation. Then we'll come back. We'll go to war with Midian. Then I'll die. But he doesn't. He immediately tells them, go to war. And he knows that as soon as the war's over, he's going to die. And Moshe doesn't try to add to his life. For Moshe, his life was a blessing to God, because the more he did, the greater it was for his soul and for him and for the Jewish people. And yet, nevertheless, God tells him this is what's going to happen, this is what he does, even if it's not good for him. he wants to do the will of God. So he does. So he says that immediately he goes to the people and says, we got to go to war. And then he explains to them all about the war, how we should do it. And if you read in 905 in the English, it talks about how they go. And it says that they were delivered from the thousands of the children of Israel, 1,000 from each of the from each tribe, right? And it says then, and Pinchas ben Elazar the Kohen, right? He went and he led the nation, and they killed the kings of Midian, and they killed a lot of Midianites, and then they took all of the booty, right? They took all of the treasures from Midian, and they took animals, and they came to Moshe together with the Kohen, the head of the Kohanim, right, Elazar, and they brought them all to him, and then Moshe goes on with the discussion. But here you have this war. They go on, and they're successful in the war. But and Moshe sends Pinchas to go and fight the war. He's what they call the Kohen for war. It makes sense. Pinchas, right, was involved in these types of things, but that's not what it sounds like that God wanted. Originally, it sounds like God wants Moshe to lead the army. Moshe, go out and go to war against them, and he doesn't. He sends Pinchas, and the commentaries are concerned. Why does he send Pinchas instead of himself? Right, and there is that he didn't want that in any way to give the impression that he's going to go to war against the Midyanim, and he's going to do a long war so that he shouldn't die, or he's going to do it poorly because he shouldn't die. So he goes and sends Pinchas, who has a track record already of being able to do violent things when it's necessary, in order so that nobody should ever question that Moshe purposely slowed down the process. And then it goes on, and it says that the Jewish people took mercy on some of the captives. Right? Instead of killing everyone, like it says that they didn't kill all the females, because the females aren't fighting. Like, why would they do that? But God says, no, you have to do it. And so Moses says on the top of 906 and 907, he says, what, you let every female live? Don't you realize that they're the ones who caused the problem? Right? And that's what happened. In the case of Midian, right, it wasn't that the Midian just went to war with the Jews. First thing, they went to war. They were afraid they were going to have to go to war and that they would lose. So they hired Bilam. And Bilam comes and tries to curse the Jews so that Midian can go to war and win. Well, when he sees he can't curse the Jews, he tells the Midianites, what you do is get the women to go out and seduce the men. The Jewish men will fall for this. Go out there and get your Midianite women, who are known as being loose. Right? They had different types of morals. And they'll go out and seduce the Jewish men. God hates, right, this type of thing, immorality. So he's going to be angry at the Jews. Then you can go to war with them and you'll win. Right? So now Moshe says, you know this, you were here. You know that the Midianite women and the Moabite women from this nation, they went and they purposely used their bodies to seduce you so you'd be sinning. And you let them live. They were the problem. So he says, behold, they caused the children of Israel by the word of Bilam to commit a betrayal against Hashem regarding the matter of Peor. And the plague occurred in the assembly of Hashem. So now kill every male among the young children, and every woman fit to know a man by lying with a male you shall kill. But all the young children among the women who have not known lying with a male you may keep alive. As for you, encamp outside the camp, and it goes on. So here he tells them, you have to kill also the women. Even though the women aren't fighting you in a war, the women were the problem in this case. But any child, right, who's too young to have relations, right, they're pre-adolescents, you can keep them, and they'll be servants for you. They'll be foreign servants for you, and you can do that. And then then they have this whole series of rules about having to stay outside the camp and purifying things. And this is where we get the whole idea of, I'm sure you've heard of how we take our pots and pans, we take them to the mikveh after you buy them. So the process is as follows. We have the laws of kosher. Right? Yeah, go out and you buy some china, some new china, it's never been used, no problem, it's kosher. But then we have a separate law that has to do with taking it to the mikveh. If you buy something that you are using for food from non-Jews, and you want to use it, so you have to, it's kosher, right? It's never been used, but you have to take it to the mikveh. And why to take it to the mikveh is because we have a concern that when the non-Jews made it, they made it with the intention to serve their God. In other words, like we're going to use the money from these pots that we make all these pots. We're going to use the money to serve God. Or they're going to make a pot. They're going to say, such a beautiful pot. I dedicate this to my God. And then they sell it to you. But we're not allowed to allow things that in any way have a taste of idol worship, of foreign gods in our homes, especially when it comes to food. Because for us, food and eating and meals are a holy thing. It's not just, you don't just eat to fill your stomach. Right? We eat and we make blessings and we help the poor with food and we use the energy from our food to do mitzvahs. So we consider eating symbolic of like offering a sacrifice. So anything that helps us with eating, we're not going to use something that it comes from a disgusting place. So therefore, anything we buy from a non-Jew, where the potential is that they could have done such a thing, I offered it to their gods, we put it into the mikvah as a symbolic gesture of cleansing it, from this. So that comes from this whole section, because you see, in this whole section, he tells them that they have to do this. You shall immerse this, and you should immerse that, and so forth. And that's where it comes from, that we do this. That's why today, if you go and buy a silver Kiddush cup made in Mexico, you have to take it to the mikvah. But if you buy silver, unless it was made by Jews, and if you buy a silver Kiddush cup from Israel, if they're made by Jews, you don't have to take it to the mikvah, because if it's made by a Jew, then you don't have to be concerned. But if it wasn't, then you have to be concerned. So Hashem, and then he goes through this whole section talking about all of the items that they took. They took all the treasures from the Midianites and the Moabites and their animals and everything, and he allows them to take that and keep that. Right? And it has all of these different types of things that they captured and that they used. Now, if we get to the next section on page 910, it changes topic again, and we have now the story of the children of Reuben, the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Gad. And what is that? The Jewish people are getting close now to entering the land of Israel. It's the end of the story now. They're really getting close, and they can actually see the land of Israel from where they are. And they see that in this part of the land where they are, where they're about to enter, there's a lot of water, and therefore the water will nourish the fields. You'll have a lot of good grains, good grass, and therefore if you have livestock, it's where you want to be. Right? Problem is, it's not in Israel; it's outside of Israel. Right? And it's on the other side of the Jordan. Israel's on that side, and we're on this side. And the whole purpose of all this is the Jews to go to Israel. Well, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben, right, from these tribes, they go to Moshe and they say, hold on a second, we've got lots of livestock. Why don't we just stay here? We don't need to go to Israel. We'll just stay here. Right? We can see Israel. We're real close. The rest of you can go into Israel, but we'll stay right here, because this is good for us. And Moshe, of course, as we see, he's infuriated. What do you mean? God's been talking for hundreds of years already that he's taking the Jewish people to Israel. And you can see it. You've gone through Egypt. You've gone through all of the troubles, everything. And now what happens? You're not going to go. Why? Because it's good for your cows. That's why. It says the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a lot of animals, right? They saw the land, right? And they said, this is a place for us with our animals. So it says that they went to Moshe and to the Kohen, and they said, right, that we want to stay here. It's good for our livestock, and if you don't mind, if we find favor in your eyes, let this land be given to us. And don't bring us across the Jordan into Israel. So Moshe says, what's with you guys? Shall your brothers go out to battle and you settle here? What does that mean? Is that the Jews have to conquer Israel from the Canaanites, right? So you're saying to me, you don't want to go to fight, right? You're a Jew, and this is the land of Israel, and you don't want to fight. You don't want to go to you want your brothers to fight for you, and you shouldn't fight, right? It sounds like something we hear nowadays. Why do you dissuade the heart of the children of Israel from crossing to the land of Hashem? What are you're making everyone depressed. The rest of the Jews are going into Israel, and they're hearing you don't want to go. What do you want to do? Make them depressed that they should think they're not going to win the war because you don't think you'll win the war. That's why you're not going. Right? This is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea. They went up to they told the whole story of the spies. The spies did that. The spies didn't want to go. So they came up with reasons. Now you're doing it again. Don't you see what happened? So the truth is that Moshe misjudged them. they had absolutely no intent to not go. They wanted to stay there, but they were prepared to say, look, here's what we'll do. We'll stay here, and then we're going to go into the land of Israel with our brothers, and we're going to go to war. And we'll fight the Canaanites. And as soon as we're finished, we'll come back here. That's where we want to be, because it's a good place for our animals, right? But we're not going to leave our brothers to fight a war without us. We're going to go and participate. You're judging us wrongly. So, right? So that's what they say. So that causes that to be a bit less of an issue. But if you look closely at their words, you find a very interesting thing on 9:12 and 9:13. I'll read it in the English. Verse 16. It says, they approached him and said, pens for the flock shall we build here for our livestock, and cities for our small children. But we shall arm ourselves swiftly in the vanguard of the children of Israel until we will have brought them to their place, and our small children will dwell in the fortified cities. Right? We won't return home until the children of Israel will have inherited the land of Israel. So that's exactly what I just told you, except if you look closely at their words, they tell Moshe, look, we're going to make like pens for our flock, right? We're going to make a barn for our animals, and then we'll make houses for our children, and then we're going to take all of our arms, right, our bow and arrows and our spears and everything, and we're going to come with the rest of Jewish people and conquer. And then since our children and our wives we're leaving behind, they're in fortified cities so that nobody can attack them, and we will not come back to our cities with our families until the war is over. That's what they said. So, but if you look closely in the words, you see why this upsets Moshe. Because they say, we're going to make barns for our animals and houses for our children. Now, if you look where Moshe, later on, where it says Moshe's condition, beginning in verse 20, he says, verse 24, it says, build for yourself cities for your small children and pens for your flock, and what has come from your mouth shall you do. Finally, Moshe agrees. He says, okay, you can build cities for your kids, and you can build barns for your animals, and then you better do what you said to come fight with us, right? So, except Moshe, and they didn't say the same thing. They said, we're going to build barns for our animals and houses for our children, and Moshe says, build houses for your children and barns for your animals. He reverses it, right? And that's Moshe is giving them a lesson, because what's happening is that these people are becoming money oriented. They're interested in making money. So they said, what we're going to do? We're going to go to a new city. First thing we got to do is take care of our assets. We're going to make a barn for our animals. And what about your kids? What about your wife? Where are they going to live? Well, we'll deal with that after we take care of our animals. Our animals are our money. We have to take care of them first. Then we're going to find a place for our children and our wives. Moshe says to them, you're mistaken. You've got your priorities backwards. That's why I'm so upset with you. Right? You want to do that? No. Here's the rule. You want to stay here, I can't stop you. But you got to do what you promised. First thing is you got to build homes for your children and your wives. That's number one. Then you can talk about building places for your animals. Don't get it backwards. People are more important than animals no matter what. Right? Next thing is you better do what you promised, which is come to war. And when we fight, you fight. And then you want to go back, you can go back afterwards. Right? Then that's the deal he gives them. Now, we learn an interesting thing in the Medrash, that it says that when they came back, it took 14 years to conquer the land. They came back, the children who they left behind, the little children, were adults. Right? So it says they came back and they said the boys had long hair, right? and they dressed like the nations, not like Jews, because they were living among the other nations, and all the men had left. All they had home was their mothers, and they had role models were the other people who lived among from the other nations, the other tribes, not Jews. And they started to act that way. And we see from this the effect of the environment on people, that one needs to understand that if you're going to go somewhere because it's the best place for you to make a living, and that's the most important thing to you, which is what they're saying, and then you better make sure that you have some way of taking care of your children, because they're going to see that that's how you are, and they're going to act that way too. And they're not going to care about the fact that they're Jewish, and they're not going to care about their family. They're going to care about making money, and they're going to start acting that way, right? And that's exactly what happened. These guys went and said, "We're going to make the barns. It's more important for us that we should be here. We want to make money." And then and we'll go to fight because we're part of the Jewish people, but we're not. But we're still going to own this land, which is good for our animals, and we're going to leave them here. And what happens when they came back and they sort of like took a step into the future and they saw our children, we've lost them. They're not going to. They don't believe what we believe. They don't kind of follow what we follow because they didn't have. We weren't around to help. It's our fault. We spent all of our time trying to make money for them, and instead we lost them. Right? It's a common thing. When guys go to work and they have to work 40 hours and they work 70 hours because what do you want me to do? Jewish life today is so expensive. I got to pay $30,000 a year tuition. I got to live in a Jewish neighborhood. The houses are more expensive. I've got to be a member of a synagogue. All of these things add up. How much money do you think I have? I have to be working 70 hours a week just to make a living, right? To take care of my kids, right? But if you do that, then you don't have any time for your kids. And then your kids grow up thinking this is how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be, all you do is work and work and work. Right? And that's not how it's supposed to be. Because you're supposed to have time with your family. Be there with them. Help them. Create the right environment. And yeah, we're in a situation where it could be that it's not possible to be able to do what we want to do. It could be our expenses are like that. But it also could be that our standard of living has gotten to the point where we cause this. It's not just that we have to have a house in a Jewish neighborhood and have a school and pay tuitions and pay for synagogues, but we don't want to. We also want to make enough money that all those expenses don't lower our standard of living. So we can still take nice vacations and still have a nanny, and we can still have our investments, and we can still go to shows and do everything. Well, in order to have all of those things, this world and the next world, we're going to have to work 70 hours a week, and maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe it is tough. That and it is amazing. You can have people making $150,000, $180,000 a year, and they're not getting by because their tuitions are so high and because memberships are so high. And right? But when they start thinking that I need to make $400,000 a year because I also want to go every year to Thailand and I want to go away for Pesach and that costs $5,000 or $8,000 or $10,000. You want to do all of these things. Well, now you're being like B'nai Gad and B'nai Ruvain. You're saying, the most important thing for me is making money. Right? We say, well, I'm making money for my family, but the fact is, it gets to a point where making money is at the expense of our family.